podcast focused on trends shaping the future of manufacturing. I'm Alexandria Burek, your host, here with A.W. Schultz, two thought leaders with a passion for people and manufacturing. Today and every episode, we are diving deep into the advancements, sustainable practices, and dynamic changes transforming how we produce everything.
And now welcome Alexandria Burek and A.W. Schultz.
Well, hello everybody. This is another episode of Factory of the Future. I am super excited today. We've got a special guest that I can't wait to have a chance to interview. As always, I'm here with Alexandria Burek, and I'm Aaron Schultz, AW. And today we're going to be talking with Jim O'Rourke. Now, for those of you who don't know, our guest today is a seasoned leader in operations supply chain management. With over 25-year experience, Jim has held a pivotal role at industrial giants like Conagra Brands, the J.M. Smucker Company, and Procter & Gamble. He's developed and executed procurement strategies for teams management in billions in spend, and has been instrumental in optimizing supply chain across diverse sectors. Most recently, the Senior Vice President and Chief Procurement Officer at Treehouse Foods, Jim is an expert in procurement and supply chain operations. His career journey has also included distinguished tenures at the U.S. Army as an airborne combat engineer. There, he was honored with his leadership and logistics expertise. An advocate for veterans' causes, he mentors and supports military service members transitioning into corporate America and mentors them on the start of their career. A lifelong student of systems, process, and leadership, Jim often serves as a guest speaker for graduate-level courses, conference, and webinars. In this episode, we will deep dive into Jim's extensive career, exploring strategies and insights that have shaped his approach to supply chain, leadership, and operational excellence. Jim, it is an honor to have you on today.
Thanks, AW. I appreciate the warm welcome, and I'm delighted to be here.
I am too. I have to tell you, Alexander, so I met Jim at one of my executive roundtables where, for those that don't know, I bring in different expertises that have manufacturing experiences, and we discuss about Industry 4.0 and 5.0 and talk about their struggles and optimizations and just sharing that knowledge into it. We had a great conversation, and it also led into a one-on-one call later on that Jim offered to explain to me a new concept, which, you know, I'm somebody that's, I guess I follow different leadership approaches and different theories and, you know, in my research, but he mentioned something called the 5 E's in leadership. And after being explained to me, I instantly asked Jim, hey, I begged Jim, would you be interested in coming on Alexander and my podcast, Factor of the Future? So Jim, if you can give me a little bit of insight on what this 5E is and how it's used in some of these factories, I think we'd be delighted to learn something here today.
Sure. Yeah, happy to do that. So the 5 E's I learned at Procter & Gamble, and the E's are envision, engage, energize, enable, and execute. And they're a fundamental approach to how do you rally a team around a common cause and work towards that goal. But as a leader, it's really important to be in touch. And as you think about the 5 E's, it's common sense. It's just not commonly practiced everywhere. And so it stood with me. That was over 25 years ago that I learned those 5 E's early on in my career at Procter. And it's, as a leader, it's a great architecture or model to really check in and make sure that you're in touch with the team, with your stakeholders, and you're supporting the team.
Do you have examples where you've seen that, the deployment of that and how it was communicated out to within an organization? Or
well, ironically, AW Alexandria, today is the 20th anniversary of Katrina. And I was at the time in global business services at Procter & Gamble, but I had been in the food business when the Jackson, Tennessee Pringles plant had lost 43 acres of roof during a tornado. And there was no we had a business continuity plan, but there was no plan on how to put a plant back together. And so we had some really great lessons that were learned. And so even though I was in another business unit, a few of us went back to help support the Folgers coffee business, which had been in the wake of that hurricane inoperable. And when I think about the envision, or the envision is what's the big, hairy, audacious goal, or the art of the possible, Procter declared that the plant was going to start up in less than 30 days, which was amazing considering you had people whose homes had been destroyed, you had no infrastructure, there was no energy, and they went on to engage and share this with the teams and gave ownership to the different department managers and department heads, and really brought everybody in, and they had a diversity of ideas, and everybody had ownership because they got a say on how we're going to start this plant back up. It was energizing. Like, what's in this for us? Well, at Procter, everybody's a shareholder. They have an ESOP, employee stock ownership program, and everybody knew that their livelihood in that New Orleans area was dependent on the plant coming back up and the Folgers coffee business being successful. The enable part, there were lots of barriers, as you might imagine. Some things in no particular order. Because of the folks who had lost their homes, they created a FEMA trailer village on the plant property. They had to dig wells to have potable water for everybody and for the production. They had to figure out cafeterias, showers, and everybody knew that those things were just basic. It's Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
People need shelter. And then the execution with excellence. And what I really enjoyed about Procter, there's SMART goals and everybody knows what's on their development plan, but they were very definitive. Something's red, green, or yellow. If it's green, we don't really have to talk about it except to celebrate a success. If it's yellow, what do we need to do from an enabling standpoint with process, systems, people to get it back to green? And if it's red, how do we fix it so it's never going to be red again? And I saw in many ways Procter in one of their finest moments. The tornado was an audacious effort. We got that plant back up in a week, but Katrina, right, devastating. And it's all in the news today on the 20th anniversary. But I saw that. But then you can use it every day as well.
Cool. So they built an entire village. Hold on, I missed that a second. They built an entire village on the facility property for the workers to then live and have housing and shelter, which other people in the area did not.
Yes, they did.
Amazing.
And Procter, and they did a lot of good to help those people with different loans and other ways to help them rebuild. And I was there, it was probably a week after the event. And if you haven't seen the pictures, it was quite humbling to think of what the mass destruction was. And so it was later on, I was at the Folgers coffee business was sold to by Procter & Gamble to the J.M. Smucker company. And I was on the coffee leadership team, and we used to meet once a month down in New Orleans.
Oh, wow.
And this was 2008 and later, and you could still see the destruction on the way from the city out to the plant, which is across from Nassau in Chef. So to see that, Procter & Gamble at one of their finest moments, in my opinion.
Absolutely. So when I think of the scale of using the 5 E's, sometimes it seems like when AW and I are both bringing ideas and things to the table, I naturally think about how can one person put this into place in their current state, their current job. Maybe that's not the approach of the company they work for, but they still want to take the 5 E's and put them to work. What's something like in the smallest way any employee can use the 5E strategy to make their workplace better?
Yeah, so I think of my time in operations and during the shift pass down, right? You think about it, the envision, well, what do we have to make today? What's the goal, right? That's what it is. We think about the engagement, having the team actually talk during that pass down of okay, here, we got to overcome some things here. What's everybody's ownership? Are there different ideas to go get that case packer up? The energize, right? So this is your livelihood in a plant, but how can I personally grow and I know as a team member what my role is and what my contribution. Being able, hey, you know what, we don't have the spare equipment to get that case packer up, so how can we expedite it with our MRO, or how can we, get a system back online, people, systems, processes, and then the execute with excellence. On the operations floor and in supply chain, by the minute, by the hour, are you up or down? Are you on track for the goal or not? And you're back to the no relo. It's binary. You're on track or you're off track. So I think it's a common sense, but not commonly practiced. And if leaders have that mindset, leaders are there to serve their team, right? There's servant leadership, and it might be overused, but I look at my job, every team that I'm working on, whether it's the multifunctional side or my own procurement or supply chain people, I'm there to help them be successful. So it is a mindset, and I've never seen it codified so elegantly as Proctor did this when I learned it.
Same. It's a wonderful concept, and I hope many people listen to this episode so they can bring that into their workplace at all levels of the organization.
Jim, I got one quick story to tell, and it has to do with it. It wasn't the 5E, but it was the 5E, but I didn't have those kind of terms on that. And I'd go to these organizations, and we Alexandria was talking about shift meetings, and that's usually where I'd start at, because they say I hear the same story. You come in, it takes 5 minutes. We sit around, supervisor talks about complaining about something, other people's complaining about the other things. But then you start putting some structure to it and assigning out different roles that everyone has to contribute into those meetings. Mm-hmm. And then you start teaching them about some of the lingos. Before we got on the show, you used the word minor stop. It's like, oh, this guy knows manufacturing, because a lot of people don't know what that means, and it's a small stop, less than 10 minutes. But it's one of those hidden problems that it's a monster that's hidden around.
Sure, it could be your Achilles heel. If you don't understand you can't eliminate that minor stop, it's going to keep coming back.
Yeah. And but I'd be asked by the general managers or plant directors or plant managers, whatever role you'd want to title that as, and they'd ask, we got to ask them a little training on this. We're going to execute on this, and like, well, I'm gonna have all these problems on the plant floor. Why are we focused on these meetings? And then they start seeing some subtle things, but they'd ask me, how do you know it's working? And I say, because the plant or the operators, they start talking different. They start they start talking not about who caused the problem, but how we're going to fix the problem, and and pushing it on the process versus individuals. And I like that the 5E, because it walks you right through the project process. You have to have a vision to where everyone wants to go. You have to engage them onto it. Figure out how to empower them. Find a way to get everyone to have a role. Remove the barriers so they're enabled, and let's just get it done. Execute.
Yeah, absolutely. And ownership is so powerful. I mean, everybody wants to do a great job. Alexandria, you know that because you're there in your plant. When there's ownership, it's such a powerful concept, because everybody's rowing in the same direction all of a sudden. And that inclusion of diversity of ideas and the engagement, everybody gets a chance to be heard. And that's really all that most people want is to be heard, to be a voice, and then they can support the consensus decision. And
what I've found is by going to the people at the floor, like on the floor of the manufacturing plant, behind the trucks of behind the wheels of the trucks that are delivering, they know what needs to be done. They may not package it up in some corporate, PowerPoint. They may not have an impact matrix to explain what should be done first or how it should be executed. But those people have the ideas. And I think when you talk about envisioning and explaining that to the people that you're engaging, those are the things that I think also managers can bring into their businesses by going directly to the source. Like talk to the ground level worker. They see the problems every day, and they're the ones that probably don't make it up the food chain, where everything appears on paper and in Excel spreadsheets like it's going great, right? And then at the ground level, everyone's running around like a chicken with their head cut off. So that's some of the things I tried to think about and I tried to advocate for, because I really do believe that those people working the front lines have a lot to offer and a lot to say, and they want, their jobs to be more enjoyable. They want the company to do well.
I agree. Yeah, when I was a platoon leader in charge of 40 people in Korea on the demilitarized zone, my first assignment, daunting task at 23. I would call it a cultural and diversity challenge today, but I learned quickly from my senior sergeants who were there really to groom and advise the officer. We're new. We don't know anything. Some of those folks were old enough to be my dad.
Yeah.
Ask the soldiers and listen, and then follow up. If they need something to do their job, let's go get it. And it's the do-say ratio. If you ask the question, your do-over-say ratio has to be greater than 1. Or you start to lose those people. And I look at operations as very similar. When I'm on a plant tour, I love, especially if I'm on the procurement side, a packaging, or I heard about a case packer who was having issues. So what do you think of that corrugate? How's it running? What are the ideas? And then, maybe we should get the supplier in, or maybe we should get the reliability engineer, or the whatever it might be, those minor stops. How do we find the root cause to eliminate it?
Yeah.
And it is so important, because that does create the inclusion and ownership.
It does. And it's a solution without, they probably have some idea, right? And I think it makes those employees feel really seen and heard, and it improves the engagement and commitment to the organization when, people who are in the top tiers of the organization actually listen and take action on the, the things that they're like struggling with but don't really have a solution for. So that's really cool you do that.
I think that's right. I heard a general officer a long time ago say, if you're walking through the motor pool, in this case, where they're doing maintenance, and you are willing to ask a question of the private, be ready for the answer. And don't be defensive. And so my favorite question I learned over time is just tell me more. It's without judgment. It doesn't shut you throw in a but, or you start to make your point and say, and you're going to shut people down. So just tell me more, and thank you for sharing.
Yeah, that's great advice. That's really, truly great advice.
I was about to ask you, how do you engage them? And you answered it perfectly when you said your corrugate question, because that's often a heated topic with the operators.
Highly emotional.
It's the emotional thing. But as far as tapping on the shoulder, hey, how are things here? And then you get the, it's good. I don't want to throw my boss under the bus, but yeah, I like that approach, and I think you're very personal and sincere when you show that. So that was kind of a question I go, was like, how do you engage them, and how do you get them to talk? And I like how you explained that.
Yeah, and it has to be the right environment. It can't be intimidating. If I am in a plant and I know the operator doesn't know me specifically, or probably even my role, and they go, oh, well, what function are you in? I would just say procurement. Like, being the chief procurement officer means nothing on a manufacturing floor. Just I'm in procurement. I'm a member of the procurement team, because you want to make sure you're approachable. In that way, titles are insignificant if you really want to be there to help others to be successful.
The other thing that I've noticed is if you're when you're first engaging them, it seems like a perfect example of what you did, Jim, was you got very detailed, specific, and it's based on your clear knowledge and experience with manufacturing and procurement over the years, right? You knew sort of what might have been causing that issue, and by asking that question, I think it shows a level of knowledge and maybe past experience to the person who's living that daily moment. And so when I've been recently, I was touring a facility, and I could tell that there was a little bit of this going on, because I was there in a consulting fashion. And so they didn't really know, what we're there really to do and all this stuff, right? Luckily for me, it was a business I was very familiar with. It was one that I used to work in. And as I started talking to them about things, like talking about more like specific stuff about being in a truck or being under a trailer to look at stuff, or just generally knowing their business, I think that also just brings the walls down so much. So sometimes by getting with people and sharing that, that like I've been in your role before, I'm sure you've been in certain, right, you walked the factory floor, that's how you knew with that particular machinery that the corrugate might have been the issue, right? So for anyone else who's listening, I guess the point is try to relate and explain or demonstrate that even no matter where you're coming from in your current role, like I've been in your shoes and I kind of understand what your pains are. So that's cool.
Yeah. And corrugate, I mean, it's the perfect poster child because it's high emotions. Everybody wants to dial in their own centerline spec and ignore the upper control and lower control limits. And it's an art, or is it a science? And you can't tell an operator that they're wrong. You have to listen. Well, tell me, why did you change that setting? And, tell me more. And we'll get the supplier rep in here next week and we can help work on that. But it is important because you're back to don't shut somebody down or be dismissive. Yeah. And everybody wants to do well. They want to make their shift goals. So they're just trying the best they can to do that.
That's it. AW, do you have any final questions or comments for Jim before we close out?
Well, I guess it's more of a, Jim, is there any kind of message you want to send out there, or something that
how people
you
can
got the
reach
5E?
you?
I pulled that from you. I don't know if there's another theories that you often dig down to, and I'm sorry if I call you out on that and I didn't prep you, but I was just thinking that make sure you get your message out.
I guess the only other thing that I would want people to be aware of, there's a theory called Cog's ladder that talks about the stages of a team's development. And as the new leader joining a team or forming a team, in the case of a big cost out on productivity or something, you have to be cognizant that trust is built and earned over time, and you're unsettling. As a new team is unsettling, what are we doing here? You get a lot of confusion, and it's only through being consistent. And the 5 E's could be a good framework to show that consistency, that you can earn trust and bring a team from the confusion stage into that esprit de corps, which very few teams ever reach. And I would just say the other thing is, I have done a team building session and asked people, 5 seconds, close your eyes, think about the best team you were ever on. And then when you open your eyes, what are the top 2 or 3 things in a room of 30 people? And when we go around the room, and I've done that probably over 100 times, the leader is never mentioned. It's the esprit de corps. It's the teamwork. It's the common goal. And it is fascinating that leaders can be replaced, but leaders can be the catalyst at the same time. And I think knowing that fine line and a framework, the 5 E's is a good way to do it. There's other theories out there as well. Cog's ladder and the 5 E's can serve as a great place to start an initiative and get everybody on board and aligned. And you can Google Cog's ladder. It was another Proctor thing. Don't want this to all be about Proctor today. But when I heard that was one, oh my gosh, every team I've been on, I've seen those stages of development. So I would just offer that. Leaders are important, but it's the team that really delivers the goal.
Yeah, we'll be sure to put that into some of the show notes, and for those who are watching the video, we'll have that posted up on. You can see it as we're recording now. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah,
Jim.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, it was great talking about this. Great getting your insight on it. And it's always fun to talk about manufacturing. But this is Factory of the Future, and we are out of here like finished goods. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
This is Factory of the Future, and we are out of here like finished goods. Stay tuned for our next episode of Factory of the Future, where we're exploring groundbreaking techniques and behaviors that are reshaping industrial landscapes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review and help others discover the cutting-edge insights transforming manufacturing as we know it.